Flooding is a constant problem for residents in Lagos, and this is compounded by concerns over rising sea levels due to climate change and questions about how prepared both the people and the state are to adapt to these new challenges. These and more will be our focus in this week's edition of Green Angle. Welcome. I am Esther Mokwariola. Parts of central China's Henan province have been inundated by torrential rains this week, and the forecast shows no sign of relief. Heavy rainfall is expected to continue over the next 2 days, putting the region on high alert. Earlier on, the local meteorological office issued a red alert for rainstorms as water levels in the Dio River rose to dangerously high levels overnight. After the breach, we mobilized over 50 vehicles and transported earth and stone to reinforce 4.2 kilometers of the levee. Our prompt actions have significantly reduced the risk, securing the safety of our citizens' lives and property. As the rains briefly paused, a team of police, militias and volunteers worked to strengthen sections of the barrier. According to the weather forecast, there will still be heavy rain in Henan province in the coming days. Nanyang city of Henan has recently experienced extreme rainfall, with some areas receiving more than 600 millimeters in 24 hours. The downpour has caused urban flooding and submerged farmlands. Houses in some villages were also flooded, and some villagers were trapped. We haven't eaten since 8 a.m. When we saw the armed police officers coming to rescue us, we felt hopeful. Finally, we were picked up by them and brought here. We feel very relieved now. We moved quickly as soon as we got to know about the situation. Our officers were divided into groups to carry out the evacuation of residents. So far, we have moved out hundreds of trapped residents. Next, we will continue our rescue operations, doing our utmost to help local residents minimize property losses. For a rapidly growing megacity like Lagos, waste management remains a significant challenge. Data shows that the state generates about 15,000 metric tons of waste daily, with each individual producing an average of 0.72 kilograms of waste per day.
Solid waste disposal, particularly in Nigeria.
To address this issue, this Waste to Energy Summit, organized by the NYSC Community Development Service in collaboration with RAC Center, aims to discuss the negative impacts of landfills and explore ways to achieve environmental sustainability.
There's a lot of organic waste that still goes to the dump site, and that's the primary source of the methane and the primary source of pollution. So what we're trying to do in that is to develop composting sites and also to develop biogas production plants. And this is one of the reasons for the partnership with the Jospon Group in Ghana.
Various waste-to-energy technologies will be evaluated, focusing on identifying solutions with minimal or no environmental impact.
Can we convert waste to energy? Can we have space to energy, which now in this case is solar? We want to increase our ratio of renewable in our energy mix, and I do believe that whole discussion about waste to energy is relevant and is a very good ecosystem.
The first is for us to be aware of what we need to do, and then start using less, materials that would constitute as waste. Then the waste that we have available, we start learning how to use them to create wealth and create more wealth for everybody.
The outcomes of this summit are expected to pave the way for innovative approaches that will benefit both the environment and residents of Lagos. It's the rainy season again, and many communities in Lagos are experiencing severe flash floods. The flooding has displaced and stranded many residents. While poor urban planning and waste management are to blame, experts warn that this is also a sign of a worsening climate crisis. What started as a well-intentioned effort to drain floodwaters from this section of the community didn't sit well with other residents. For them, this action could worsen flooding and lead to further displacement. For a coastal city like Lagos, just a few meters above sea level, projections suggest it could disappear by the next century due to the climate crisis exacerbated by global warming. This situation is made worse by the constant indiscriminate disposal of waste in drainage systems, among other environmentally unfriendly practices. This is Bugijie Extension in Ibejuleki local government area of Lagos, heavily flooded after a recent torrential rainfall hit parts of the city. Most of the houses here lack proper drainage channels, and there are claims that some properties are built on drainage paths.
Look at the height of this place, that we were this area of the path is low. That consider us, because any water you throw off from that place will go into people's residence because of the height of that place compared to this place. And this morning, just like you saw that the work have already begun, we have tried to stop them, we drag and drag. Everybody spoke their mind, but they insisted that they must do it, that because it's a project, it's an intervention project, that some people's houses there are flooded and they couldn't even come out of the house. And we now reason with that. But at the same time, we are saying, when are you going to come and start doing the concrete work, so that at least it will prevent whatever intensity of what happened when a bigger rain fall.
Their fear is that they are going to open the place down without casting it later. And I told them that states, they were coming to do a proper construction. And I told them, without excavating this water away to the river, it will later affect every one of you. Even though it's not affecting you directly into your house, but for you to access the road back to the house, either with your car or with leg. And also, their children, after closing hours, they used to come to that swimming area to come and swim inside that place. And I told them, all those things can cause another problem for us. And we don't want any one of them to lose their children.
Most of the properties here are sold by landowners and not state authorities, and as such, lack proper checks to ensure houses constructed have proper drainage paths to avert situations like this. Some of the drainage channels here are quite shallow and littered with waste, making it difficult for floodwaters to flow into the appropriate channels. Others aren't well constructed or just layered across the streets with sandbags to guide the water passage.
I believe what costs most of all from doing drainage is this. The government says for every drainage it must be concrete. And I can tell you, everybody that lives around here is managing. So it's very difficult for us to build concrete. That is why I believe that is why the drainage is not there. And I can equally say, sometimes ago, there was a drainage along this road, mighty drainage canal. You understand? But because of we the landlords, we also say it because, and it was not cast. Every drainage that is being done that is not cast, there is tendency that even during the rain, it will still come out of.
In the meantime, the Lagos State government is ramping up efforts to clear drainage paths following weeks of torrential rainfall that submerged several communities.
When people are used to having bad behavioral pattern over time, they won't stop overnight except you stand your ground firmly. And we are very resolute on this. This era of anyhowness is not going to continue. What brings development is when you enforce your law.
However, experts believe that beyond government intervention, responsible actions like proper waste disposal and urban planning are crucial for a coastal city like Lagos to mitigate the devastating impacts of flooding amid changing weather patterns.
In the meantime, the Lagos State government plans to bring back the monthly sanitation exercise to keep drainage channels clear of waste and reduce flooding. Environmental activist Desmond Maje-Kodumi shares his thoughts on this and other related issues.
This is where all the water is discharging to. The niche. The drainage is full. The recent floods in Lagos were indeed very alarming because they came with such ferocity due to the fact that there was very heavy rainfall, there was high tide at the time, and also a lot of the drains had been blocked. The reality is we're going to be getting a lot more rain. This is just the reality that humanity has to face. This is due to the anthropogenic effect that we're having on the environment, specifically the pollution that's been going up into the atmosphere that has been causing extra heating of the earth that is now causing more evaporation, and of course you have more evaporation, you're going to have more water falling. So the reality is there's going to be a lot more rain. In fact, some people don't even call it rainfall. They say that what we're having now is rain bombs, where you will have rain that would normally fall over a period of 1 week. It can fall just in 1 day. And this can overwhelm whatever effective flood relief systems you have in place anyway. So again, the idea is to ensure that you have these reserves of the mangroves, and also to insist that the various natural streams and rivulets must be connected. They cannot be built over, they cannot be blocked in any way, especially the concrete drains that have been put there. It is a terrible offense because it's not just, aesthetically bad. As a result of this type of activity of blocking the drains and doing things that are upsetting nature's natural systems, you're causing floods which can take people's lives, especially the more vulnerable people, destroy people's livelihoods. And there's one reality in life, that action begets reaction. So if you're responsible for doing this, either through neglect or through direct irresponsibility and illegality, then the reaction will be forthcoming on you as well. Government's recently announced plan to reintroduce the Saturday sanitation exercise is a welcome development, but the hope is that it shall be very, very well publicized, and it shall be used as a tool for sensitization, because really we shouldn't have to force ourselves to lead sanitary lives. We shouldn't have to be forced not to dispose our rubbish in the gutters or sometimes just thrown on the roads and so on. There should be enough sensitization, and I do believe once people understand the implications of doing that, the consequences of doing that, we will desist from doing it. So maybe for a period of time it could come back, although I hear there are some legalistic aspects to it which I'm sure would be effectively overcome. So, and it's a way of bringing neighbors together. Sometimes we don't even interact much with each other. But on the Saturday sanitation, we get out there, we see each other, we help each other, which is what it's all about, In our great city of excellence, we should have an excellent attitude towards our neighbors.
Green Angle returns in just a moment. Stay with us. Mangroves are a mix of trees, shrubs and ferns that grow in salty waterlogged soils. Nigeria has one of the largest mangrove forests in Africa and the 3rd largest in the world. These mangroves help fight climate change by storing carbon. But sadly, mangroves in Nigeria and around the world are being destroyed and lost. In this segment, an environmental activist, Akin Disu, shares insights on what can be done to protect and conserve the mangrove ecosystem.
So mangroves are, first of all, and most importantly, they hold the land, they create land. So where you have mangroves, they protect the shores from erosion, first and foremostly. Secondly, mangroves act as nurseries for fish who come in there and they lay their eggs around there, and these eggs grow up into fish, which provides soft capital for the city of Lagos. As we all know, the price of the cost of fish in Lagos, well, this is as a direct result of the destruction of the mangroves of Lekki Lagoon and Epe Lagoon and all those areas. And we are now at risk of losing the rest of the mangroves we have in the western peninsular areas of Lagos State as well. And then we now know that mangroves are the most efficient ways of storing carbon. In the last 4 to 5 years, the temperature in Lagos has risen by 4 degrees on average. We now are averaging around 32 degrees when we used to average around 28 degrees in a year. Now, the global limit was 1.5 to 2.5 degrees. So we in Lagos have already surpassed this. And we're a coastal region. We understand by now, everyone should understand the implications of the rising temperature and its effect on the sea levels. So we in Lagos have now lost our natural protection from rising sea levels. And what we have left is also at risk. Meanwhile, the temperatures are rising, and this being able to sequester carbon is a way of cooling your environment, as well as all the other things that it does. So the mangroves at risk are a great risk that the city is taking. Right on the beach runs a residency which works with Unilag and NYSC, where we invite students, 50 to 30 students every year, to work on these environmental concerns. Now, the students have been doing this for the last 3 years. In the first year, our focus was to determine how much mangroves were still remaining. In the second year, it was to determine what utility we can do. And last year, our focus was what are the laws that are available for us to protect these mangroves or to move forward with protection. We need to protect the city because it is at risk now. And so we need to develop the agencies that actually protect the city, because right now, if you look at our environmental laws, these are lacking. So I'm calling on this generation basically to start the advocacy to call for the government to protect our natural environment before it is too late. So, I mean, traditionally we are animists, and if you look at it, you will find out that most mangrove areas are deemed sacred, or they have sacred areas around them. For our neighbors in Cotonou, there's this local juju called, I think it's called Zambeta, and they use this where they tie like pieces of chicken and they tie pieces of fish and stuff like that to the mangroves so that people know to stay away from them as a way of protecting the mangroves. Now, this was something that they came up with the local chiefs, so people know it is sacred and it's important, and they stay away and they protect it. I think one of the most important things is awareness, and then placing a value on it, because what you don't value, you will not protect. And what you cannot see, you cannot feel,
is of no value to you. So we need to actually show the children, the youth, we need them to take ownership, which means we need to be aware of our mangroves, be proud of our mangroves, and take ownership of our mangroves. It is a very special thing we have, these mangroves, on the edge of such a city as Lagos. It's an incredible thing. We are one of the very few places in the world where you can be in the Radisson in the morning and in the mangrove forest that same afternoon. So it is great from a point of even research and all sorts internationally. And for the generation that is coming, because they are the ones who will be affected by global warming. So it is really important that they get to know about this treasure on their doorstep and take control and ownership over it and protect it for them, for future generations.
And that's about it on this week's edition of Green Angle. Until I come your way next time, remember, together we can build a sustainable world. I am Esther Mopariola. Bye for now.